The Israeli soldiers were laughing and mocking me while beating me to death. Two Israeli soldiers grabbed my hands and two others my feet, then started swinging me left and right. I fell to the ground twice, and on the third attempt, they shoved me over the hood. It was extremely hot that my back was burnt. They drove me back and forth for 20 minutes. I had hoped to be dead before the Israeli soldiers arrived. I had expected them to attend to my wounds, not to beat and batter me, while I already had two critical injuries.
Nida Ibrahim is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Harrowing testimony is what comes to mind, Nida, about what that man had to deal with. What else did he say to you?
Yes, what he said was really disturbing, because he was telling us that he was behind one of the jeeps, injured in the arm, in the leg, and when he saw the Israeli forces, he kind of waved to make himself visible, but also thinking that they might attend to his wounds and take him to the hospital. Instead, they continued beating him up, using really force on someone who has been injured. Again, as you heard, they're swinging him to put him on top of the hood of the Jeep. Now he says not only is he affected by the pain in his arm and his leg, but also his back with the blisters, because it's already hot now in the occupied West Bank. So imagine a moving vehicle that he's being put on top of while being injured and wounded, what that can add to his pain, to his trauma. He's now talking about, a long recovery time. So you're talking about Palestinians who are just going about their daily lives. They can get shot, but also can get mistreated, put on a vehicle. He was saying that the Jeep kept driving back and forth. He was scared that the soldiers would push the brakes, basically making him fall from the Jeep. Again, when they let him go, he says that one soldier pushed him and dropped him on the ground. So after all of that, he's been interrogated. They took his name and they told him, "Oh, we have nothing on you," and then they let him go. So if that tells you anything, it tells you about the inhumane conditions that Palestinians keep going through on a daily basis, day in and day out, not only in the besieged Gaza Strip, but also here in the occupied West Bank.
But it does allude, doesn't it, to that much wider pattern of abuse that Palestinians have to endure day in, day out, as you say, not just in Gaza, but in the occupied West Bank.
Yes, Sohail, this time we had a video. And that's why the video went viral, and there's a lot of interest in the story. That's why we've seen an Israeli army statement about that, saying that this is not the usual conduct of the Israeli forces. But knowing the fact of what's happening, the facts that happen on the ground here in the occupied West Bank, because we've been reporting on this story for years and talking to many Palestinians, we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We always hear stories of the Israeli forces using Palestinians as human shields, but we don't always have the videos to prove it. I remember in the beginning of the war, we were speaking to one gentleman in Hebron in the south of the occupied West Bank, who was saying that the Israeli forces put the rifle on his shoulder and kept shooting towards other Palestinians. There was a very, basically, picture was taken from afar, so that's why it was not very clear. But, these kinds of videos, when they go out, they show us part of the reality of what's happening, because much of the Israeli practices against Palestinians go, without cameras. That's why they go unnoticed. But the reality is that because there is so much impunity here in the occupied West Bank, Palestinians keep going through this, inhumane treatment day in and day out.
Nida Ibrahim.